Hi, I'm Alex Howard, and welcome to Conscious 2. My guest in the studio today is Mooji. Hi, Mooji.
Hi.
And this is part 2 of our dialogue around where the absolute meets the relative. And Mooji, we were just getting to a point where you were talking about how we can have an expansion and have a contraction, and then we have to effectively work over time to stabilize that expansion. Not quite the words you use, but I think that's the essence of it. And the question I really wanted to ask was around the role of commitment and discipline in that. Because it strikes me that in a lot of spiritual work, the teaching can be just to follow our heart. And it can be sometimes, I think, interpreted as just following what feels easy and just going what feels effortless in that moment. And sometimes really training the mind or stabilizing where we are. And I feel that's what you were starting to touch on. That can sometimes that can require an effort. And I was wondering how you see that place of trusting and unfoldment, but also really showing up to that.
Well, it is okay in the beginning. In the beginning, there must be something there because, first of all, the way I see it is that anyone who is drawn to this in any sincere way, you're being strongly supported by, I use the term grace. I'm very comfortable with this. Something is already supporting your this unfolding to take place. Sometimes we are not aware of this because so much reliance is put upon our own sense of personal autonomy or something like this. But at some point, you do come, if genuinely you're coming into seeing, you will begin to notice that in a way not recognized before, that there are some powerful seeming coincidences are happening in life, and they cannot just be sort of driftwood. You know, it has to be something is behind this, an intelligence. Mm-hmm. Some intelligence is there, some kind of wisdom is there. And when you begin to see this, it really softens up something inside, and it makes you feel strongly supported. But in the beginning, depending upon the strength of one's maturity or openness, some people need a lot of support, reminding, guidance, and so on. No, the feeling of commitment would have to be something that comes naturally for you. Because some people are not disciplined at all. I myself was like that. I'm not disciplined at all. Even now, I'm not so. If a discipline arises, it comes by the grace of the self. It comes in the same way that if you fall in love, like I say, no one has to remind you to remember your beloved. Right. It is something natural, no? So,
except when you've been married many, many years.
Well, yeah. The example is only so much useful, okay? But in the beginning like this, you have to somehow be... there's something natural in this. It's not just a question of only determination. If there's a sense of determination, it is consciousness playing through the expression of determination in one body. In another body, it might play a different tune. It might just seem to be totally oblivious about anything or carefree about something. Mm-hmm. There is no standard about it. But in the beginning, there will be some natural urge to protect or to want to deepen. This is something that comes natural, to want to deepen in this. If it stays only as a psychological or intellectual conviction, it will not last. Yes. It will collapse under some stress, or when life gets tough, it will just wither up and drop away. But this is why I use the word, if there's sincerity, if there's something authentic, if there's the earnestness to keep pushing in there. And I say if, because there are times when someone only has the courage, the openness to understand something at an intellectual level. And beyond that, it just seems much too compromising, much too demanding, because you're being pulled into a space which is unknowable, actually. Yes. You cannot study the unknown. It has to be some faith there. There has to be something in you that says, I take a step, I take a leap without the map. You see, this is something that is unique, because normally the conditioned mind It likes to have things in place and know what's the next step and so on. It needs some kind of spiritual GPS or whatever you call it, no? But here you're in the moment, and you'll find also naturally the tendency is not to refer so much to past or to future. So the whole regime of thinking, the whole kind of person qualities, they are sort of lightening up or burning off, and a newness is coming in, a new way of seeing, a new sensitivity, a trust which perhaps was not evident before now comes into the picture. So all these things are surprises that help the consciousness, who is still wearing a certain amount of personhood, to have the courage to take the necessary steps when it's important to take them.
Yes. Yes.
You see, in the beginning, but as one becomes much more clear that oneself and the beingness or the consciousness is synonymous, it just comes. It's like spontaneously it develops like that. As it comes more into that phase, and then the need to strive and to push and so on, it drops away.
Yes.
Because the life becomes much more intuitive, much more spontaneous. And it is as though you're constantly moving in an alignment with life.
Yes, although one of my one of the questions I'm particularly curious about is when we have an awareness of that, and then that rubs up against the complexity of the world, and we have to fit into structures, and we have to do certain things at certain points and get to certain places, and it's sometimes very difficult. I find it very difficult to integrate that place of trusting my instinct and my flow, and times where incredibly beautiful, unexpected things happen as a result of trusting that, and having to deal with the stuff of the world and the organization and practical pieces. And
I want to say something about it.
Okay.
Okay. Because actually the world is only as significant as it plays into your consciousness, you see. Because what happened is that you're going to get tested as you move into now a space that we are not encouraged through our conditioning to function in this way. The world at large does not trust. It doesn't trust, and I will tell you why it does not trust. Because we identify as a person, and a person is a sort of a psychological kind of entity that has been coached or trained to be a survivor and to go out and to get life and to manipulate and to push things around till you get what you want. It's a suffering role actually, and heavily strenuous in its activity, and always stressed in some way. So what happens is that for the most part, we don't trust life. We don't trust life. We have this deep mistrust of life, and yet we are life. This is a paradox. We have a mistrust of life, and why? Because most times the egoic identity is inclined to run into trouble. When it runs into trouble, it gets busy trying to solve its situation, and it rarely works with patience. It has no trust. So mostly we're acting out of what I would call haste.
Yes.
We don't believe that things can correct themselves. We believe that if you don't save yourself early, it's going to get worse from here. So almost everyone seem compelled by some force internally or externally to rush into life, and this is why the whole notion of the need to make decisions and so on, which is a very mental thing, seems to preoccupy so many people.
Yes.
When I advise the people, hold back a bit, stop, don't pull your parachute too early. You see, some are pulling the parachute in the plane. I said, no, it doesn't, just calm. And so something, you can see the nervousness, like something just wants to bolt and to go for it, to run into action, because there's a fear that if I don't act now, it will be too late. And so some very powerful support has to be there, and encouragement to say, no, be strong, and just hold back, and just somehow allow, and just keep looking, that's all, which is something people rarely find easy to do. But as they do, what happens is they come to see that at a certain point, all this energy, racy energy, excited, anxious energy is slowing down. There is still some anxiety there because there's a underlying mistrust, but that begins to calm down, and it reaches a certain, what I call almost like a cosmic plateau somehow inside. When it touches that level, you feel completely in harmony with life, and you start to see that certain forces are coming into play to bring forth or to fulfill a gesture or a movement and to bring it into some kind of harmony.
Yes.
When we see that, that's when, again, we begin to trust again,
Yes.
that life takes care of life.
And I resonate with and I really appreciate what you're saying. And if I play devil's advocate, there's another place that comes up in me where I think about, some of the global crises that we face, which are very real, especially the environmental situation. And one of the things that I notice is that there's a place where it can be very easy to go to a place of just trusting with that, because actually that feels easier than really engaging with the need to act and the need to deal with it. And is there a place where we can use trusting as a way of actually not engaging?
Okay, I have to say something about
Okay.
this as well too. Because the mind is, we need to be careful about this, because we can point in any direction and go snap here, and you'll find some global crisis. Okay, we can't solve them. We can't solve all of them. You see, and right there in the midst of your own sadhana, you're saying, "I'm trying to balance all these things." I would also say, "There's no need to try and balance anything. The balance is already in the universe. You must simply find it. You cannot do it. A person cannot do it. A person is, in effect, an imbalance also." So what I say is that there seems to be a crisis, and the mind points to it and go, "Ha ha, how dare ye rest and be at peace with the world and God when these things are happening? How selfish or what, I said, "Listen, you're going to leave the world for a moment, okay? Because what needs to be sorted out is you. You need to get sorted out. When you are sorted out, and it may seem selfish, the psychological side will rage some war and says, look at you, you're being selfish, you're just kind of going for the easy way. It's not an easy way when to resist the panicking mind and to effectively be a spiritual salmon swimming against the currents, to actually be quiet and to be still. It's not running away. It's actually going to the heart of truth, from where you are much more effective, not as someone throwing coins into the well, but that you cannot overestimate the power of one whose being is resolved in as consciousness. We highlight so many things as though we can put them right. Nobody can put them right. No politician can put them right. None of them can do it. Nobody can do it. It's like this. It's all an act of consciousness. It's all an act of consciousness. Now, does that say we should just fold our hands and say, well, goodbye to the world? No. The consciousness has certain players that it puts into those roles to act. You are being put in this role to act in whatever, you will find whatever that is. But I don't think you need to go looking. You must look first into your own self and come fully true. You must come fully true. There is a saying, you must become the change you wish to see in the world. Nobody can do it. I'd rather not say this. I'd rather say, you must become that which you cannot not be. You must discover yourself. You see?
And though, is there then a place, if that's one's calling, that one should stampede into the world and from that place of truth, engage in the way that they need to? Because
there is nobody doing it. Because when you have resolved your own identity, you are not a person anymore. You are going to find out. Can I say something really terrible?
I'd love you to.
To many people. There are no persons in the world. There's only consciousness. Please, let me say it. I don't mind being shot for it. There's only
I don't want to
consciousness.
be shot at the same time, though.
No, that's okay. You cannot take responsibility for what I say,
I'm teasing
but
you.
I say that this whole thing is the consciousness is playing the role of diverse expressions of being. It's one consciousness. We may say we understand that, we accept it, and so on, but to really be it, one has to really just leave things aside for a moment and somehow drop inside the ocean of your own self. That's not running away from the world. The world is not a big deal, actually. The world is changing all the time. The person also is changing all the time. It's not reliable. By the time you're ready to fix this problem, it's changed again to something else. And even the one who's trying to change the problem is also subject to change. The whole thing is moving. The whole thing is moving. If we reduce, what is the smallest particle in the world, in the universe? A neutron or something? What is it? What is it? What do they call it? I don't know. I'm not
An
a
atom, a
scientist.
particle?
An atom
Yeah.
or something. If you look at an atom or some whatever you use to look at them, you will see that it's a movement. If the very structure of the universe is a movement, it's not even an object. In fact, it means the whole of this phenomenal universe is a movement. Everything is moving, and the only thing that can actually perceive this movement is the unmoving self.
When one, well, I suppose there isn't anyone left at that point, but I was going to say, when one lives from that place, when consciousness is expressing itself through that place, let's say that, what does that look like, or how does that express itself? And I guess, because one way we could come at this is your life is one of service, as I see it, that you teach, you give of yourself completely freely, and that seems to be how consciousness arises within this space here that we can label Mooji. And I guess that happens differently in different spaces, in different people. Is that how you would
Yes,
see it?
yes. But it's the same consciousness there.
Sure.
You see, I mean, whether it's shining shoes on the street or, standing in some golden chair or whatever, it's the same consciousness is there, and the same consciousness everywhere. Even now, it is like that. What is different is that consciousness is in recognition of itself as consciousness, and not merely as a person. The person somehow has shifted from person into presence, a state of presence. It is how we are most happy as presence rather than as person. The state of presence is the middle step, you can say. Presence is when you are not meeting life personally anymore. You understand person. You live in the world with the belief of personhood encircling you, you can say like this. It is understood. You're not starting some campaign to change personhood. Your very presence is also active in some way, even in its seeming passivity. It impacts upon life in some way. And I say in a much more genuine way, because people, when they begin to change, not as persons changing into better persons, but as persons changing into consciousness, that is a very radical change, because that's a change that on the whole is irreversible. It's not moving in the domain of what is changeful. It's moving towards the unchanging. When we go into the space of the unchanging, then we can wear the mask of the changing, but we always see it as a mask. It's not a pessimistic view. It's actually a very kind view. It's a truthful view. And the more that beings are drawn, because even if you are an housewife or whatever, you will impart that wisdom. Even if you are dumb, it will somehow radiate in some way from you. And I'm not saying this in some kind of poetic kind of way, because daily, I'm seeing this functioning like that. So I just feel like this is what I want to. Sometimes it feels like, no, our actions should be measurable, on the Richter scale of activity, because we venerate activity. We think it is a virtue. But sometimes we miss the point that it's the beingness rather than the becomingness that is the power. And if human beings, we are missing our beingness because we are so obsessed with becomingness. But the potential to flow in the river of the changeful, of the becomingness, it pulls us away in the play of phenomenality, pulls us away into a state of alienation from our being. It is not true, but it will be experienced like this. And life is experience, you see, if not anything else. It is experience. And people need to experience their beingness again. You see, like that.
And that seems to be, for many people, the catalyst for something else to happen, that they have a taste or they have a moment. And we've got a few minutes left, but perhaps that would be a good place to end. What do you see support someone in having that taste?
Their own beingness will support them. Because as soon as, I'm happy that we are coming towards this point, because if we merely try to convince each other with exchange of concepts, it will not work. It will not go deep. When people are touched in the core of themselves, and it can be outwardly, it can seem to be nothing, but an impact has taken place, either through the meeting of presence or a sense of meeting something grand but inexplicable inside you, then naturally it's like a flower opening to the sun in response to the sun. It's an involuntary response. It's something kicks in and your life begins to tremble on the verge of something magical. Until then, it's just mental noise. It's just we're exchanging concepts. But if you are touched somehow, then it's like your life begins to flower. Otherwise, we are just caterpillars, not becoming butterflies. I'm just saying like that, okay?
Sure, I like
By
that,
butterfly, I mean that your life blossoms into what it should be, which is your beingness. And for me, you ask what supports that. The support comes strongly from inside, but until we are able to really comprehend that in a meaningful way, the support is coming from all of life. You'll find it's so magical. You bump into someone or whatever, and they give you some food. Their beingness, the look in their eyes or something, sort of it charges something up inside and gives more motivation, more power, more aspirational, inspirational drive to complete this seeking, to not be tolerant with the psychological identity, but and makes it seem totally accessible to live life from the place of being. This is I don't want to call it a vision. I don't need to have a vision, but this is how my life feels happiest, naturally. When we are speaking like this, for instance, I hope that somehow through our conversation, many beings will somehow, come to, it triggers a deeper research or exploration into their own self, and to see that it's the most beautiful thing. You need no tools for it. You don't need to go to Himalayas. If your heart is really throbbing for the truth, life will arrange a meeting for you. It will arrange a meeting for you, and it will somehow send little help, little pockets, little blasts of help. If you're smart, you'll catch them. If you're not smart, you'll miss them for a while. But
great.
Yeah.
Well, Mooji, that's a beautiful ending. Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate having your time. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
I also enjoy so
Thank
much.
you. Great. And
Okay.
thank you for watching. And we look forward to talking to you again here on Conscious 2, hopefully very soon. Bye-bye.